They deal with all my emails and everything. And I just want to tell you a funny story that Colton's parents shared with me. So they've been looking forward to Demon-thon since the end of January when I invited them. So apparently yesterday at school, he was so pumped that he was coming. He went up to his principal and asked to make an announcement on the loudspeaker that this is where he was going to be all weekend. But his principal said no, so he wasn't really happy about that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the Sullivan family.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming today. Bear with me if I get a little teary-eyed. First of all, I'm Andrea. This is my husband Francis. This is Max, he's 5. Sam is 9, and Colton is 8 years old. And I want you all to know that Children's Memorial Hospital has been a part of my life since the very moment I became a mother 9 years ago. All 3 of my children have been treated by physicians. I've had 3 premature babies, which required us to have a neonatologist in the delivery. We were very fortunate to have that. Sam and Max did amazing. They spent a couple extra days in the hospital and were discharged home. Colton, on the other hand, wasn't so fortunate. He was delivered 7 weeks early, and we knew right away that he was having problems. He didn't cry. He was a pale gray color. He was put on the ventilator immediately and transferred from our home in Joliet to Chicago for what they said was just respiratory problems. He would be there for a couple of days, come back home, and spend his happily ever after with us. However, at 1 a.m. that morning, we took a phone call that changed the course of our lives forever. In a 20-minute conversation, I think we heard one thing, and that was that Colton had several congenital heart defects that weren't compatible with life, and he wouldn't be coming home from the hospital without open heart surgery. This was tremendously difficult to hear because, as you all know, the heart is incredibly important to sustaining life. For Colton's first surgery, when he was 1 day old, he was so sick that he wasn't able to go downstairs to the operating room. So they closed the unit and they brought the operating room to him. He did almost too well with that surgery, and for a couple of days there was talk of listing him for heart transplant. Fortunately enough for us, he stabilized, was able to come off the ventilator, giving us a few days to just snuggle and love one another. Surgery day came again when he was 13 days old. The day was a complete blur to us. He spent 8 hours in the operating room on bypass, but a miraculous thing happened while he was in there. They took my 4.5-pound son with a heart the size of a grape and transformed him from a blue baby into a rosy pink little boy with a shining future. There was no question in our mind that we were in the right place. Not everything came easy for him, though. On Christmas Eve, less than 24 hours after his surgery, he developed a blood clot that threatened to take his leg. That blood clot later broke loose, causing a stroke that's caused some lasting problems for him. Despite all of his problems, he fought with a tenacity all his own and came home just 8 days after surgery, 3 weeks earlier than the doctors predicted. The day was New Year's Eve, which was symbolic for us because it was like our slate was wiped clean and we could start anew. Colton had many follow-ups and did well for several months, but then he started having respiratory and other problems. This prompted his first surgery on his airway and an MRI to diagnose what the issues were. He came away with a surprise diagnosis that in hindsight explains so much. It turns out he was also born with a defect in his brain that caused a lot of pressure and some very serious problems. We treated this conservatively for a long time until he became sicker and sicker, requiring a feeding tube to eat. At 16 months, Colton started to lose all his developmental skills. He was no longer able to talk. He couldn't sit up anymore. He couldn't even hold his tongue in his mouth. And so off to the OR he went again for his first brain surgery. Colton sailed through the recovery, spending just 3 days in the hospital for what should have been a 3 to 5 week visit. Colton regained his skills, but he continued to have respiratory problems. So 6 months later, he was sent to the operating room again to get a G-tube and have a surgery done to help control the aspiration he was having. He had complications with his surgery and spent 3 weeks there, came home on oxygen therapy. For the next 3 years, we spent in and out of the hospital with more airway surgeries and another cardiac surgery to implant a recorder to watch over his heart rate. Again, Colton lost some of his developmental skills, and so he was sent to the operating room again for brain surgery. They wanted to take him on his birthday, but we said, no, you can't have him, that's our day. You can have him the next day. Colton ended up getting sick, and we had to cancel and reschedule that surgery 4 more times before he was finally well enough to go to the operating room. So on April 1st, he was finally stable enough. He did fantastic yet again, but his cardiac problems persisted. So on July 10th of 2010, Colton had his 5th open heart surgery to implant a pacemaker. I am happy to tell you that Colton has not been inpatient since that day. So even with all the history that I shared with you, you may not realize the significance of that truly. In all, Colton has had 5 heart surgeries, 4 lung surgeries, 2 stomach surgeries, 2 brain surgeries. He spent over 3.5 total years as an inpatient in the hospital through over 100 separate admissions. He's had greater than 700 outpatient clinic visits, which means the Children's Memorial Hospital truly is our second home. It continues with clinic visits several times per month. We've seen good days, and let me tell you, those good days are really good. But we've also seen our fair share of bad days, and they're as bad as they could possibly be. We've had to hand Colton over time and time again, praying for the safe return to our arms. We've prayed for one more breath, one more beat of his heart, because we just weren't ready to say goodbye. I know the sound a baby makes while trying to cry over a ventilator. I know that an unconscious child that's sedated can still produce tears and show that he's in pain. I've also learned that you shouldn't feed your cardiac child blue popsicles before a visit with a cardiologist. They get a little pesky. I know the joy of Eskimo kisses and sticky hugs, and can even appreciate a good tantrum, because that tells me he feels well enough to be mischievous. We're back to the grind on Monday with more appointments. And like Harlow's dad said, we live this every day. It doesn't just sit tucked neatly on a shelf, ready to come out whenever I'm ready for it. So on those days that you're feeling rather uninspired, think back to this event and let these kids' energy for life carry you through. We do. We're very thankful for everything. And so every night, I whisper in my child's ear, Colton, you are the strongest person I know. If you ever feel too tired, just know that you're not alone. I'll fight with you, I'll fight beside you, and I'll fight for you, always and forever.
Give me a happy tomorrow.
Nobody wants to find out.
Let's get an FTK.